Welcome, Coleman Report Live, official Dog Day of August session. Chuck Evans, Lance Sexton, welcome to you both.
Thank you. Good to be here, Bob.
Yes.
Thank you all for joining us, and let's get right to it. Poll question. What are the pain points in your SBA process today that you would like to improve on? And this is multiple choice. You can answer all or none or whatever. And Lance, was this your question or this Chuck's?
It may have been. Well, it was kind of a combination, wasn't it? I think the main thing we're looking at here is figuring out from a participant lender perspective, what's the toughest part of the SBA process, cradle to grave?
The very beginning.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the three hardest points in that process, in my opinion, is determining eligibility quickly and efficiently, collecting the documents that the lenders don't want to collect, and managing borrower expectations. And if you get those three things done, you got a lot of it licked.
Well, guys, Bob, if it's okay, I'm going to get on my soapbox. The one that got 69%, guys, the IRS is driving me nuts. I have a circumstance where I have a deceased person who signed the tax return, and they keep rejecting me because I'm providing someone. Anyway, the long and short of it, getting the transcripts back have become quite a chore, and I don't know how many of you have experienced this. It could be as simple as they're writing Chuck Evans member, and he forgets to put the R at the end of member, and they reject it.
Kicks it right back. Yep.
Yeah, that's been a consistent story throughout the industry. Second poll question. What is the number one reason for an incomplete credit memo?
I don't know if this is a trick question, Bob.
Not a trick question. This is the number one reason it gets kicked out of Citrus Heights for GP.
Our participants got it correct, didn't they, Bob?
Nope, it's life insurance.
Is it really?
It really is.
Well, I think it's a great thing to bring up when you talk about underwriting. Something that the SOP encourages, if of course you take all available collateral. If all available collateral does not fully secure the loan, then life insurance is a great way to shore up the loan.
Well, it's mandated to be addressed.
Yes.
You don't necessarily have to get it if it's too expensive or the borrower is unable to qualify at a reasonable rate. But the number one reason, if you think about all this, credit memos, we're addressing collateral, we're addressing credit elsewhere, we're getting pretty good about that. We're addressing working capital, but we're not addressing life insurance. So.
Well, the other thing on life insurance, Bob, let's say you submit a loan and the authorization comes back with a life insurance requirement on Lance, who's an old guy. And Lance goes out and prices life insurance, and it's like $3,000 a month. You can get that waived with SBA. If it causes a cash flow issue with a small business, you can get that waived.
Notice it doesn't say life insurance is required. Life insurance is not addressed. Number 3, is your bank comfortable releasing collateral unilaterally on an SBA loan? Lance, this is one of your favorite questions.
Yeah, we've asked this question over the years, and of course, releasing collateral is a unilateral action, and probably one of the most common requests. If you take the junior mortgage on the residential real estate, and 2 or 3 years later they decide to sell the house, what do you do as a prudent servicer of that SBA loan? If the loan is paid down and the collateral now fully secures the loan, you actually could release that house. Or if the loan has not paid down enough and the remaining collateral still doesn't secure it, you may release the house and refile on the new one they buy and require they put the net proceeds in. But you cannot, as a prudent servicer, Bob and Chuck, let them sell the house and keep the net proceeds if the loan is still undersecured.
That's common sense. Yeah.
Lance, have you seen a repair in these type of situations?
I have seen a repair talked about, and it was kind of it was an interesting case, Bob, because there was a repair on the release of a junior mortgage on residential real estate. And this was a loan that was 8 or 9 years old, and they just gave a full release. It basically, Bob and Chuck, was a loan that was underwritten that had very little collateral except for the second on the residential real estate. And about 7 or 8 years later, they released it and didn't require any pay down, any release and refile, and a repair was there. And the interesting part, guys, guess what they based the appraisal was done in, and I think it was 2005, 2006, when real estate values were off the charts. And then the loan defaulted when real estate values had corrected quite a bit. Well, they were basing the value of the repair on the origination appraisal.
Wow.
Calvin asked a great question. I'm not going to read it because I'm not going to read it. But Lance, you've looked into this, and here's the issue. We're selling an assisted living facility, but we need to change ownership, but we need a new license, and we need title. What do we have to do?
Guys, this situation, and Chuck and I were talking about this beforehand, you want legal counsel involved to make sure you're perfected the way you need to. My initial thoughts are a close with a delayed disbursement, but I think you've got to have legal counsel involved to make sure that the license is in place and that the collateral position is properly perfected. So I wish, Calvin, I could give you a better answer, but you need to get your attorney involved to make sure you're in a good position.
Well, not to be
and your SBA attorney, yes.
Yeah,
that's what I would do. I would talk to your local district council and talk to them. Is this something that someone in headquarters can respond to, Lance? Or
you can send it to the 7A questions email box. There's different requirements in different states from an origination perspective. For instance, Texas is a state where you can't take a second on a residential real estate. And there are other states that are like that. And of course, in Arkansas, you don't even think twice, you take the second. But it's one of those where you could send this to 7A questions email box, or if
Bob Carpenter, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But here's the thing. Bob and I constantly encourage our our bankers to know their district office, to know somebody at their district office. And this is a situation where if you have a district office, say a district director or lender relations specialist, that's a great place to go with this.
District council. Very good. Very good. Laura asked the question about ACH fees, NSF fees. What's going on here, Lance?
Well, she's saying that on 7A Express loans, they're due the first of the month via ACH. This has got to be a bank requirement. Yeah. Your payments are not required to be on the first. I think a lot of people try to make them actually due toward the last week of the month, so the payments come in plenty of time for the 1502 report. But they're not absolutely required to be on the first of each month. So now on 504 loans, Chuck, Bob, I don't think they have to be on the first either.
No, it's a conventional loan with the 504 program. You treat it just like your other loans, and prudent lending, you try to collect the payments when they're due, and using the reason that you're paying late fees as a convenience is crazy to me.
Let's go to the next slide, Joseph. And that's what this question is. One of my borrower states she pays a late charge as a convenience fee for us not having to take the payment on the first. Lance?
Well, again, one thing as a prudent SBA lender is having good discussions with your borrowers and make sure you set up the payment dates to fit their cash flow. I mean, it doesn't have to be on the 1st. It could be the 15th. It could be the 20th, whatever. The idea of the late fee being a convenience fee, that's Chuck and I were talking about that. That's like the person who runs to McDonald's and gets a coffee and they don't have any money in their account and they get hit with an NSF fee. I mean, I can't imagine somebody thinking accumulating a late fee every month is a great thing. And I once saw a deal, Bob, where a borrower paid the final payment on the loan, but they had not paid attention. They had been consistently 10 days late and had late fees. And this customer had thousands of dollars of late fees accumulated by the time they got to the end of the loan. So they thought they had it paid off, but they still owed like $7,000.
Hey, Chuck, we got this question from a loan broker who is claiming that there's a lender out there doing a subprime SBA loan closing for a dog kennel, 167% loan to value. Monthly business debt was reduced from $14K to $9K. The final rate was 8.25%, amortized over 25 years. They got about $30,000 worth of working capital, consolidated debt. The property was housed at the borrower's business of primary residence. Chuck?
Oh, this is a tough one. If it's at the primary residence, you need a site visit. What else, Lance?
Well, part of the underwriting drives me crazy. Why $300,000 in working capital on a dog kennel?
Red flag, yeah. Absolutely.
That immediately jumps out.
House in the backyard. That's my opinion.
Well, and here's the other thing, guys. $900,000 worth of debt being consolidated. You have to make sure you meet the debt refinance requirements of the SOP. Yep. So was that debt originally eligible for SBA financing? That's the big question.
Home mortgage?
And my guess is if it's
eligible, yeah.
And my guess, if it's a subprime SBA lender, maybe they haven't taken a look at that. The other thing, the LTV, that to me, that doesn't jump off the table, guys. The collateral rules are take all available collateral. And again, we talked about life insurance. If it's not fully secured, add a life policy. But having a high LTV is not necessarily a huge negative on an SBA loan. But the things that jump out to me is a lot of working capital for a dog kennel. I can't imagine that. Yeah. B, a ton of consolidated debt. Was it all eligible? So those are the biggies on that from my perspective. And guys, there's always going to be rogue. I don't know what a subprime SBA loan is. Is this? But anyway, there's always going to be a rogue lender that will do things that are not according to SOP. My suggestion to you as a prudent SBA lender is follow the SOP, because at the end of the day, what's important is if the loan defaults, will you get paid on the guarantee if you submit it?
And SBA has new enforcement action going against these rogue lenders, and they will. They will. Okay, we got a bunch of news. Let's get into it. New size standards. We wrote about this Monday. 90,000 new businesses will now be classified as small businesses. This is really for federal contracting, but it's I always like to see those. This was an interesting story. The number of entrepreneurs between ages 25 to 34 is down, which is interesting because a lot of us are starting to age and retire, but we're getting fewer and fewer younger entrepreneurs out there. Lance, Chuck, are you two seeing that out there?
I am not. That's
okay.
Yeah, I'm not either. But Bob, I remember an article a month or two back that was talking about the impressive growth in entrepreneurs over the age of 50.
Right.
So,
yep.
So, I mean, that may be part of it. And I know I've seen a lot of studies that talked about the millennial generation and large percentages of the millennials. Of course, 25 to 34 is not a millennial, right?
Right.
Okay, so they're talking about, say, the 34 to what? 45, but apparently there's a great desire for business ownership there. I'm not sure what's happening to the 25 to 34.
Well, they don't want the risk. I think a lot of student debt also. That's
Well, in this group,
That's a good point.
you guys,
Very good point.
I was going to say, you guys read various publications, but this group don't like buying houses either.
No.
They rent.
Hey, let's bring in Katie, our contributing editor for Fraud Friday. Katie gave an update on Carrie Agee. We all know Carrie. Katie, welcome back. What did you find out?
Okay, so last Friday we broke a story about Carrie Agee. Agee was the president, chief executive officer, and founder of BankServe. She's also a major player in the SBA lending industry and is really well liked. As you were just saying, she took her employees to the Bahamas and she took people out to dinner. She was very, very well liked. Unfortunately, what we're hearing in this indictment, the FBI started investigating her and her company in 2017. And the investigation led the FBI to believe that her company had obtained at least 7 loans with SBA guarantees that did not meet the SBA guidelines. According to this indictment, Agee supposedly directed her employees to create and submit these fraudulent loans. A lot of them she had them claim that money is going toward working capital, when in reality, this money was supposedly going toward past due taxes and student loans.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sad situation. And of course, the takeaway on this is do not send an email to a co-conspirator and say they got us.
Right.
That's
Or maybe have $300,000 in working capital for a kennel.
Yeah.
and I think the takeaway on this is, Katie, there were 7 loans out of thousands of loans that they went after going back to 2004. This was not an operation that I would call a criminal enterprise, but they obviously, according to the feds, they made some serious mistakes. And I guess that rises to the level of criminality, right, Lance?
Well, when I read that, of course, we all have known a lot of the participants in BankServe, and they were a respected LSP for a number of years. So, and some of them were friends of mine. But the long and short of it, guys, is there's an SOP called the 5010-5K, and it's had a lot of other letters, and it'll be the 5010-6 when the new one comes out. Looking forward to that, by the way. You're supposed to follow the rules. SBA, Chuck, support me on this. SBA's never said you have to make a great loan. They say you have to follow the rule book.
Yeah. Chuck, bring us up to date. You just finished Music City in Nashville.
Music City, the regional conference, another great event put on by Jennifer at Eventfully Yours. We had maybe 250 participants, a lot of vendors. And SBA, we had Linda Riley, the 504 chief, Nick Jellum, was the 7A update. The interesting keynote speaker was Sean Henry, the CEO of the National Predators. As a Flyers fan, I didn't realize that the Predators were the #1 franchise rated by ESPN. Interesting information. Very motivational.
Anything new?
No, there wasn't, actually.
Okay.
That was
So
it's
basically
supposed to be a training function, Bob. But it was a good training function.
Hey, we're going to extend this by a week, so don't panic if you don't get it done by tomorrow. But this is for our secondary market summit. We'll extend the early bird for a week, Joseph. Let's make sure we do that. And we got the dates announced. And these are some of the upcoming ones that we have. Nashville again, New Orleans, and Washington, D.C. We are having our award-winning training, Lance. Our summer courses are now available. People are still taking advantage of that. And we will roll that also out in the fall. And there are our upcoming webinars. Lance is doing one next week on 5 critical C's of lending, and I'm going to do a USD BNI update. And with that, everyone enjoy your Labor Day, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank
Have
you.
a great weekend.